Good morning, everyone. We begin this morning with a look at the life of Coach Mike Leach. The Mississippi State University head football coach passed away earlier this week. He was a character at press conferences and in interviews, but what we're learning is that he was a mentor and a champion of many in the college football world. WCBI's Sports Director John Sokoloff is joining us this morning. John, appreciate your being here this morning to help us reflect on Coach Mike Leach and the memorials continue to pour in for him.
Yeah, and he wasn't just an icon in Starkville and Mississippi. I mean, let's face it, whoever is the head football coach of this program here is going to be a big name around town.
Sure.
But he wasn't just an icon here. He was an icon everywhere, all throughout the college football world. He went to every program that wasn't one of the biggest names programs in their conference and took the situation and left it better than he found it, which is very, very hard to do today, especially in the landscape of college football. It's incredibly sad. It's an incredibly emotional time for Bulldog fans, for college football fans. I mean, you look at when he went to Texas Tech and he led them to an 11-win season and won like 9 games a year out in Lubbock. That was unheard of. At Washington State, an 11-win season out there, a multi-time Coach of the Year. Here at Mississippi State, he walked into a tough situation during a COVID-shortened season and then went from that to, like a 3-win improvement his second year, then 8 wins this season. So just incredibly sad.
Coaches, fellow coaches, fans, athletes all loved him for his coaching ability, but a very unique personality is also what drew people to him.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, look, he had the quirky comments during press conferences. We've seen all of those. I mean, interviews, we've seen it as well. Talking to him countless and countless times like that. That was the type of deal that definitely drew people in. But once his players and his coaches really worked with him or around him every day, I mean, they loved the guy. And I talked to a couple people that played for him at Texas Tech, and they were almost just brought to tears. Just not even just that they were sad at the news, because they were incredibly sad, but just grateful at what Mike Leach did for them and how they were able to use what he taught them to become not just better football players and coaches, but better people.
I've seen lots of people posting and tweeting over the last couple of days about a lot of teaching moments that they had with the coach. Reporters, for instance, talking about I would stop him at the end of a press conference or after it was over just to ask him a simple question, and then we talked for an hour about all sorts of things.
That was him. That was him. If I were to shoot him a text message, he'd get back to it. He might get back to it late at night, but he'd get back to it. Talk, at the end of press conferences, you walked up to him like what you said anytime. I remember one time I asked him about how he does film study on a Sunday and what kind of goes into that. He stopped and went in detail. This is a busy SEC football coach stopping to talk with a reporter to just kind of enlighten them and be a nice, genuine, good person. And I can confirm with you that most people would not do that.
And I was going to say, I've heard you mention several times over the last couple of days, this is not normal behavior necessarily for every coach in these situations. They've got lots of people to talk to, lots of things to do.
They do. These coaches, I mean, it's a tough lifestyle. It really is. You're working nonstop 24/7, and for him to have just such a good attitude, not just in those moments, but through the moments when, let's face it, like it looked like he probably wasn't in the best health, like leading up to it, and he was still just a nice enough guy to all of us, and countless interviews, countless times speaking to him. I'm really going to miss him.
You've used the word icon many times in referencing him over the last couple of days. He really will leave a legacy, not just on Mississippi State University, the state of Mississippi, but really on college football.
Definitely. I mean, the air raid definitely changed a lot of those concepts. Even NFL teams run those concepts at this point now. So between that, just what he was able to do at the college level and just how, marketable he was and his players ended up becoming because of his success. I mean, no one that follows college football doesn't know his name.
Sure, absolutely. Well, he certainly made a name for himself here, and we're all happy to have been able to experience the Mike Leach era here in the SEC and at Mississippi State University. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
Well, the social media post this week went from prayers to condolences. We want to share some of those with you this morning. You can see some of the biggest names in the college football industry, state political leaders, others all sending out tweets this week, remembering Coach Leach. He's being remembered as an innovator, even a philosopher, but most of all, he is being remembered as a person who was generous with his time, as we just heard John talking about. As we see this outpouring of support and grief from fans, one image in particular sticks out to us. Take a look at Marshall Ramsey's latest cartoon. Ramsey posted this picture of a pirate flag flying half-staff with a bulldog laying in the front of it with tears rolling down its face. The legendary coach is known, of course, many of you know, as the Pirate, and Marshall Ramsey there striking just the right chord for fans of Mike Leach. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Circuit Court Judge Michelle Easterling. All right, welcome back, everyone. In just a few short weeks, there will be a new judge hearing cases in the 16th Judicial District. Michelle Easterling won the seat in a runoff, and she joins us at the table this morning. Judge-elect Easterling, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And congratulations again. So this moment really is historic, and you didn't talk about it a lot in your campaign. You don't really want to make it a center point, but it's worth mentioning that you are the first female judge in the 16th Judicial District. That's quite an honor.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very proud of that. I'm also excited for the opportunity that it brings to bring a new perspective to the bench, a perspective of a wife and a mother, as well as being a practicing lawyer for all these years. But I think it's important.
As a practicing attorney and as the prosecutor for Clay County, obviously you are no stranger to proceedings in a courtroom, but you're switching hats here. So you're going from advocating for people to just trying to keep it balanced, maintain order, and be fair and impartial. Talk about making that transition.
Sure. I've loved my time working with local law enforcement in Clay County for the last almost 10 years as county prosecutor, and this will be a change in that position. But it's a change that I wanted and one that I know that I will do well with. It's to be fair, to be impartial, to be a neutral. A lot of times you hear people referring to a judge as an umpire in a baseball game, listening, letting the lawyers do their jobs, but also maintaining the order, maintaining the flow, and applying the law in a fair manner. And I think what's important also is making sure that the people that come into the court understand that process. And so I'm looking forward to taking that responsibility, but it certainly will be a little shift for me.
Well, you've been on the other side of it, and you understand what judges have to endure, even though you were sitting in the seat of an attorney, so you get that part of it.
That's correct.
So let's talk a little bit about, because we have a new court in Oktibbeha County. Okay,
Yes.
so you will be serving Oktibbeha, Lowndes, Noxubee, Clay in the 16th Judicial District, but there is a new court in Oktibbeha County. How does that differ from Circuit Court?
Sure. Circuit Court and Chancery Court are our two courts of general jurisdiction in Mississippi. The County Court is a court of limited jurisdiction. However, the County Court, as in Lowndes County, Oktibbeha County's County Court will be a great help to our Circuit Court district. They have jurisdiction over youth court matters or juvenile matters, as well as matters pertaining to eminent domain. Also, with regard to any matters that the Circuit Court will transfer, such as non-capital felony cases.
Okay.
They can also do search warrants, do preliminary hearings, conduct preliminary hearings, and the like. So it will be a great help to the Circuit Court of the 16th District.
And one of the things I understand is that it will help some cases move a little quicker,
Yes.
particularly youth court cases will be able to move a little quicker than before.
And that's what I understand as well. And I think that will be, and I think all parties involved, families, juvenile offenders, as well as our employees like the Child Protective Services. All of those people would like to see that happen, and I think that they'll find themselves in that, that things will move more expeditiously.
I understand in recent weeks you've been through some training, some judges training that's required for this post. having gone through that and just thinking about your past experiences, how prepared do you feel, I mean, to get started in this new year?
Certainly, it is a little overwhelming. A lot of things are happening in the district with just a few weeks remaining in the calendar year. Also having a late runoff election, November 29th, and then being right back into training. It certainly has crowded my calendar, so to speak, but I'm looking forward to it. It is a challenge that I am ready for, and certainly recognize that there are going to be things that I may not know and have to learn. There will also be times where I just have to take a break and say, let me read the law and let me get to the bottom of it.
Absolutely,
So
that's a part of it, isn't it?
it is. It is.
And do you know when the swearing in will take place?
I actually do not have that scheduled yet. I'm hopeful that maybe right before the Clay County, the second week of the Clay County term. So I'm hopeful the second week of January.
Well, I know you'll be ready to hit the ground running. Again, congratulations to you, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you a lot more in the coming months and years.
And thanks for having me today.
Thank you for being here. Merry Christmas to you.
And also to you.
All right, coming up, small community hospitals purchased by corporations and profits with profit in mind. What that means to rural patients, that's coming up on Mid Morning. Welcome back, everyone. It is happening in small communities around the country, including those here in Mississippi. Small hospitals and medical centers are being shut down, some for lack of funding. Others are being closed by investors looking for profits, according to a CBS News investigation. CBS reports one company made millions of dollars, then closed some of its community hospitals, leaving those patients scrambling for care. It's part of a larger trend of private equity investors snapping up everything from local doctors' practices to specialty clinics and even hospice care centers. Chief Medical Correspondent John LaPook has that story.
This is what it looks like when a hospital shuts its emergency room doors, turning away patients like Shirley Posey.
I was having shortness of breath and tightness in my chest.
Latifah Dixon and her 2 children showed up after getting into a car accident. They too were turned away, along with 28-year-old Cecilia Vizuete, who is having trouble feeding her 1-year-old daughter because of a breast infection. They said I should look on Google Maps for another hospital. Inside Delaware County Memorial, the hallways and patient rooms, normally bustling, were empty, except for a few nurses charged with cleaning the place out.
I cried. I'll be honest, I cried.
Emergency room nurse Angela Napolitano is the president of the local union and worked there for 41 years.
My children were born there, saved my dad's life in the emergency room, so it's a part of me.
Delaware County Memorial was part of a non-profit Pennsylvania health system that was in danger of failing when it was purchased in 2016 by Prospect Medical Holdings, a Los Angeles-based for-profit company. With the backing of private equity investors, Prospect Medical's portfolio would, by 2018, grow to 20 hospitals in 6 states. After the Pennsylvania purchase, the company had promised to invest $200 million to dramatically increase service to the community.
They tried to tell us that they were going to run us the same way. Don't worry, trust us.
Did they actually say that to you?
Yeah.
Instead, Napolitano says Prospect Medical dismantled the hospital piece by piece, leading to longer waits in the ER and forcing staff to transfer more patients to other hospitals.
They kept on cutting services. Things wouldn't get fixed. Our elevator in the back of the emergency room has been broken for over a year. Holes in walls, not fixed. And then when they closed the ICU, that was a knife in my heart.
A CBS News investigation found of the 20 hospitals owned by Prospect Medical, 5 have closed, including this 89-year-old hospital in San Antonio, laying off more than 500 workers.
We wouldn't see a hospital closing down if this was a more affluent area.
Delaware County official Monica Taylor says closing what's considered a safety net hospital will hit the area's low-income population hardest.
What happens to a community when it loses its only emergency room?
There aren't resources nearby, and so we find that people wait longer to go to the hospital. It leaves a gaping hole in this community that is going to be very hard and very difficult to fill.
In a PowerPoint provided to the county, Prospect Medical cited high labor costs, record inflation, and the COVID-19 pandemic. But according to Taylor, the company has been reluctant to share its financials with the county.
You think they've been leveling with you?
No. I had a sense that they were not giving us all the information.
They didn't care about health care, doctor. What they cared about was making money for their investors.
Rhode Island Attorney General Peter Nerona says what's happening in Pennsylvania is what Prospect Medical tried to do in his state, where he says the company drove 2 hospitals deep into debt.
Their hospitals were in real danger of closing.
In 2019, Nerona investigated a proposed company transaction, invoking state law to force Prospect Medical to turn over its financials, and found it put every hospital in its system at risk of reduction in services, sale, or closure.
Did they say, look, there was a pandemic, who could have predicted that? And that's really largely responsible.
Well, this had nothing to do with the pandemic. Hospitals all over the country were facing the pandemic, but the problems here were exacerbated, frankly, by greed.
2 different outside experts followed the money and discovered one reason why the company was so far in the red, summed up in a ruling by Nerona. In 2018, the owners of Prospect Medical took out a $1.12 billion loan, using proceeds to pay themselves and their private equity shareholders a $457 million dividend.
They basically took a big loan out, okay, $1 billion loan out, and took nearly half of that loan, and rather than invest those loan proceeds in the hospitals that they owned, put the money in their pockets as dividends.
How did they try to pay back that loan?
They sold the hospitals off and leased them back. So now you're even in a worse position.
In Delaware County, that leaseback arrangement meant $35 million a year in rent had to come out of hospital budgets. This after Prospect Medical's owners and private equity investors paid themselves that $457 million dividend.
You know how much that was?
No, I don't.
It was $457 million.
Oh my God. That makes me want to cry. It makes me sick because that should have went back into the hospitals and into the community. And the whole time that all this was happening, they were blaming the staff and COVID.
With the hospital now shut down, a judge next week will hear arguments over whether to require Prospect Medical to find a way to reopen its doors.
What they've done is extremely evil, in my own words.
Why do you think it's evil?
Because to gain $1, you've maybe destroyed lives, maybe even ended lives, because they can't get the help that they need.
In a statement to CBS News, Prospect Medical said it's cooperating with health officials and working to transition Delaware County Memorial to a behavioral health facility. In an annual report, the company said it has lived up to its commitment to invest $200 million in the Pennsylvania health system. Prospect Medical's CEO declined an interview, but the Rhode Island Attorney General told CBS News that the Prospect Medical CEO's share of the $457 million dividend was about $90 million. Dr. John LaPook, CBS News, New York.
Some big names in late night are signing off. We'll tell you what that means when mid-morning returns. The Daily Show is marking the end of an era. Host Trevor Noah signed off at the late night comedy show last week after surprising his fans in September with the news that he would be leaving. Noah had led the program since 2015 when longtime host Jon Stewart stepped down. The Daily Show airs on Comedy Central, which, like CBS, is owned by Paramount Global. As Michelle Miller reports, Noah's exit is part of a larger shift in late night TV.
It was a night of tributes for Daily Show host Trevor Noah.
The whole time here, it felt like it was just the two of us immigrants just coming together to tell Americans what was wrong with them, which they always appreciate.
As his correspondents and celebrities took turns sending him off with a bit of a roast.
As someone quitting a job in America, you're about to lose your health insurance, so you should probably sign up for Cobra.
But the show's heavy dose of comedy also turned poignant, with Noah reflecting on his 7 years and the state of American democracy and polarization.
Somebody that you may not agree with on most things can do something that you like.
And taking an emotional few minutes to thank those who had shaped him.
You truly want to know what to do or how to do it, or maybe the best way or the most equitable way? Talk to black women. They're a lot of the reason that I'm here.
September 28, 2015.
When Noah first took over The Daily Show from his wildly popular predecessor, Jon Stewart, his very first joke highlighted just how far he had come.
I'm not going to lie, growing up in the dusty streets of South Africa, I never dreamed that I would one day have, well, two things really. An indoor toilet and
and a job as host of The Daily Show.
Though Noah initially struggled to attract an audience, his show eventually grew in popularity, particularly on social media. But TV viewership has continued to decline, falling 58% since the start of the 2016-2017 broadcast year. And The Daily Show isn't an isolated case. The leading network shows have all seen double-digit decreases, prompting concern over the future of late night.
From the bottom of my heart, can I be the new host?
As the search for a potential Daily Show successor begins, Comedy Central has announced a roster of guest hosts for next year, including well-known names like Al Franken, Chelsea Handler, and show alumnus Hassan Minhaj.
Thank you so much for coming out.
While Trevor Noah hits the road once again.
This has been an honor. Thank you.
Michelle Miller, CBS News.
And Noah's exit is one of many high-profile changes hitting late night in recent months. And stay with us. We'll be right back to wrap things up. And finally this morning, from a darkened bomb shelter to the bright lights of the stage, a Ukrainian youth choir is spreading a message of freedom. Air raid sirens force members to, at times, rehearse in a darkened bomb shelter, lighting their sheet music with whatever light source they could find. We leave you this morning with the Children's Choir and Carol of the Bells. We're just going to